She has her own Pegasus unicorn, a magical sword, more powers and abilities than He-Man, and an even cooler theme song. She's She-Ra, and for the honor of Grayskull, we're about to find out all that we can about the original Princess of Power. Hey there, my little nerdlings, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Danny Sansacy, and this is Comics and Cosmetics, where I, a licensed cosmetologist and registered super nerd, talk to you about whatever nerdy topic I've been obsessing about that week while doing my makeup at the same time. Did everybody have a good Christmas? Good New Year? I did pour a shard out for Betty White. R.I.P. That woman was a legend. I mean, she lived 99 years, and it still feels like that just wasn't near enough. Should we all be mildly concerned that she just exited stage right before 2022 happened? Yeah. I mean, it's like 2021 had the last word. Moving on to happier things. This week, as I just told you from the future, we're talking about She-Ra. But before we get into the character origin of one of the very first, as I believe it, female superhero animated series, we need to talk about where she came from, where the idea of her came from. The year is 1983. Mattel has had the fabulous idea of creating a toy line based off of Conan the Barbarian, but with lasers in space. So Conan and Star Wars, basically. Both movies were insanely popular at the time. Return of the Jedi had just came out. You know, the Ewok one. I was very disappointed when my mother gave birth to a brother and not an Ewok. Both movies were insanely popular at the time, and Mattel wanted to cash in. But what was the best way to get the word out? It's 1983, and there's no such thing as interwebs. The only real way to reach out to the masses at one time was television. So they have meetings, and they discuss, marketing ideas. What are the best commercial ideas? If you aren't old enough to have remembered commercials from the 1980s, I'm so sorry for you. They were the best. They were the absolute best. Nothing compares to commercial production in the 1980s. I mean, they really got your attention. This is back when people actually watched commercials. And I'm absolutely serious. We enjoyed the commercials in the 80s. I mean, they were so good you actually wanted to watch them. And you would quote them with your friends. To this day, we still do that, Where's the beef? Never gets old. It was during one of these meetings that they're talking about, Star Wars marketing and how the toy sales for the Star Wars franchise was like staggering. And that's when it clicked. We need something for them to affiliate the toys with, something that makes it more interactive. And that's when someone had the absolute genius idea: Saturday morning cartoons. I should probably pull my hair back. Now, a Saturday morning cartoon was an absolutely genius idea. Speaking as a child of the 80s, if you were a kid when I was a kid, on Saturdays, you got up early. I mean, compared to when my kids get up on Saturdays, the weekend when they don't have to. You got up early, you got your little bowl of cereal. If you were lucky, it was Lucky Charms, something with marshmallows in it that was really terrible for you, if you were lucky. And then you'd get your little metal TV tray. We still have one here. I wish it was nearby, but we have a G.I. Joe one. I had Gem and the Holograms. Oh, thank you. But you'd get up early enough, get your cereal, okay? And you would get in front of the family television, which was probably a giant wooden console TV where the screen was a third of the entire system. And you would watch your Saturday morning cartoons on one of 3 different networks. This was a big deal for kids in the 80s, okay? Why do you ask? Because it was the one time of the week where you were absolutely 100% in charge of that television. For about 3 to 4 hours every morning, you were in charge of what was being watched on that TV. He-Man and the Masters of the Universe was an absolute juggernaut of a hit. It crushed the competition consistently. The sales for the toys were absolutely stratospheric. It went completely beyond all expectations. I mean, if you think about it, it was an absolutely brilliant meld. You know, you would watch the cartoon and then you'd run to the store and you'd get an action figure, and the action figure would come with a little bio or maybe a mini book, tell you all you needed to know about it. And you'd go home, you'd recreate the cartoons. Then as Saturday morning rolled around again, you'd bring your action figures with you and play with them as you watch the cartoon. Extremely interactive. And sometimes they would come out with brand new characters in the toy line first, and you're like, ooh, what's this? And then you couldn't wait to watch Saturday morning to see if that new character was being introduced. During that first year, Mattel noticed a pretty interesting trend. Now, it wasn't completely unheard of for little girls to watch the cartoons that were, you know, pretty much mainly geared towards the boy audience. We're talking G.I. Joe, Transformers, Voltron. It wasn't completely unheard of. But when it came to He-Man and the Masters of the Universe and the toy line, they noticed that there was a larger than usual percentage of the watching audience that were girls. More girls were watching He-Man than G.I. Joe and Voltron. And furthermore, they were making their parents buy the He-Man toys for them too. Far be it from a worldwide toy corporation to miss out on an opportunity to make an extra buck. They decided, we should expand this Masters of the Universe to include girls. And then we could sell twice the amount of toys we've been selling this whole time. That's thinking, right, Jim? Yes. Now, again, if you are not a child of the 80s, then you probably don't remember how blissfully lame most cartoons and toys geared towards little girls really were. They were very one-dimensional. They were focused quite a bit on being pretty and being nice and accommodating to everybody. Hey, don't get me wrong. I had strawberry shortcake. I had Care Bears. I had My Little Pony. I did. But let's face it. Once you discover G.I. Joe, Voltron, and He-Man, you're like, what? This is exciting. This is so much more exciting than Care Bears. There's just no comparison. They had better stories. They had more dimension to them. It was a lot more interesting all the way around. This gave Mattel and their animation company Funimation a great idea. Let's strike lightning twice. So in 1984, they released a She-Ra action figure first, and they released her with a little mini book. As you know, we said earlier, common practice. You know, you'd get a new He-Man action figure and they'd come with their own little story to tell you who they were, what they were about. Right away, they got very positive responses. The reaction was precisely what they expected. The kids, boys and girls, not only really liked the She-Ra action figure, but they were really into the mini book, The Story of She-Ra. It really went off as planned. After laying the groundwork with her action figure and the mini book, They let it kind of marinate for a bit. And then in 1985, they released her full-length movie that even released in some theaters. It was basically the first 5 episodes of the new She-Ra series, and it was called The Secret of the Sword. It was an immediate success. And I have to tell you, I tried finding the pictures. I was a She-Ra fanatic myself. I remember Christmas 1986. My parents got me a little cosplay kit. Back then it was just a play set, a She-Ra play set. And I was very excited. I'm really upset that I couldn't find the pictures. I thought that they were in my Christmas album, my Christmas scrapbook that was made from, you know, when I was a little kid, but not in there. But I remember getting this play set and immediately just tearing it open, you know, putting on her little headpiece, her crown, little gold plastic crown, and it came with her sword. Now, again, if you are my age-ish, then you remember toys in the 80s, and swords that came in these play sets were made out of this kind of hollow, cheap plastic. And let's just say that false advertising was totally commonplace. But we'll say false expectations, okay? Okay. So I get this hollow plastic sword out of the play set, and I'm kind of swinging it around and whacking stuff with it. You know, typical kid shit. But the reason why, it's not like I was trying to whack invisible baddies. I was trying to make it turn into stuff. Okay? Because in the cartoon, it turns into stuff. And I remember just going like, here, like, nothing. Really pissed. Because in the cartoon, it turned into stuff. It very clearly turned into stuff. Mattel, I'm still just... Angie made my sword pink. Why was the costume sword pink? Her sword was not pink in the cartoon. I'm a purist. What can I say? Disappointing. Disappointing, Mattel. But girls everywhere, girls and boys, instantly were hooked. They were on board the She-Ra train. So as this stuff gets launched and kids are going crazy for it, very exciting for Mattel, a little bit of a coup happens at Mattel. Now back then, Mattel was divided up into 2 halves. It was completely segregated, and in fact, physically so. It was divided straight down the middle, boys on one side, girls on the other. As in, not necessarily the employees, but the lines. You had boy toys here, girl toys here, like straight down the middle, it was split. They were 2 halves of a whole. Of course, the girl line included Barbie, who, come on, dude, Barbie. I don't know. I mean, my girls didn't really get into Barbie like me and my friends did in the 80s, but let me tell you something. Barbie was a big effing deal in the 80s, okay? That was Mattel's cash cow at the time. So when the girl side of Mattel found out that the boy side was releasing girl toys, it was like, hold up. What are you doing? Oh no, that's mine. No. You do boy stuff, we do girl stuff. That's how this works. It was extremely territorial. So through some, you know, verbalizing and some savvy political moves, whatever you want to call it, the girl team at Mattel was able to finagle their way into the She-Ra line themselves. So now the girl team over at Mattel has totally taken over She-Ra, the production of the She-Ra toys. And this is kind of a double-edged sword, at least for me. I feel like a lot of the internet feels the same way. But, you know, the good side of it is there are a lot of girls out there that can do both. There's a lot of girls out there who like the action. They like the fighting bad guys and all that stuff, but they also like playing dress up, okay? And if there's one thing that the girl teams at Mattel totally understood, thanks to Barbie, was dress up. They totally understood dress up dolls. But the problem was that the draw to She-Ra wasn't that she was a doll. It was the fact that she was an action figure. She was an action figure, but an action figure for us. You know, our brothers had his G.I. Joes and He-Man stuff, and we liked He-Man too. We thought it was really cool. But now we got a girl who can do both. But when the girl team over at Mattel took over She-Ra, she slowly but surely started turning more into a doll rather than an action figure. And to be perfectly frank, we really didn't need more dolls. I mean, personally speaking, I had 118 Barbies at the time. 118. If I wanted a Barbie, I'd go grab one of my 118 Barbies. That's kind of where they missed that mark. With me, at least. I don't care if this is a doll. I like the fact that she has a sword that turns into a lasso and can kick Hordak's ass. You know, Barbie pretty much had a foothold on like anything you could do as a girl. I mean, really, as a person. I mean, she was a astronaut, bus driver, even a veterinarian. She did everything. But she was not the princess of power, okay? She-Ra was. That's what we wanted. We wanted an action figure. We wanted the princess of power. The best part of She-Ra is her story. And I'm not even saying in my opinion. That's a fact, man. That's a fact. If you don't agree with me, you're wrong. Even though she does not exist without He-Man, her story makes her so much more dimensional than He-Man. If you really think about it, He-Man's a very flat character. He's much like Superman, okay? Boy Scout, one-dimensional. That gets boring after a while. She-Ra, totally different. This fact attracted my generation of little girls to She-Ra. That's what made her so appealing to us, because as little girls in the 80s, our characters, I mean, the characters that were really directed towards us were really, really boring. I mean, don't get me wrong. I loved Rainbow Bright. I loved My Little Pony. I loved Strawberry Shortcake. But it was all about being nice and just doing what you're told and basically being a people pleaser. And that's not really okay. You don't want to teach children to just, okay, whatever you want. You do not want to teach little girls to be people pleasers. And if you don't see how that is problematic, then you're probably not a little girl or have had little girls yet. And, you know, not to be too DJ Khaled about this, but it was just boring. It was so boring. Her story seemed to resonate with so many people that even in 2012, DC took a crack at her story and really fleshed it out and made it more relatable and interesting. Good for them. Good for you, DC. Good for you. She possesses and represents the very ethos of feminine power. Not only does she possess the same superhuman strength, reflexes, speed, nigh invulnerability that He-Man has, but she also possesses empathy. She has the soul of a caretaker. Her sword is called the Sword of Protection. He-Man's is the Sword of Power. Hers is the Sword of Protection. To me, her Sword of Protection just really demonstrates the most powerful tool in any woman's arsenal, and that's versatility. Sometimes the fight doesn't necessarily require a sharp instrument like a sword. Sometimes you need a rope, a ladder, a shield. The Sword of Protection could turn into those things. He-Man's sword, the Sword of Power, did one thing and one thing only. Stab, stab, stabby, stab, stab, stab. Stab, stab. Stab, stab. That's it. She possessed the power of super empathy. She could relate to people. She could understand how, what, why they were doing these things. She understood it, and she could reach them on that level, on their own level, and pull them back up. That's a beautiful power to have. With this ability, this empathy she possessed, it also gave her the power to, communicate telepathically with animals. And she had the ability to heal. He-Man couldn't do any of those things. He was super strong. He was super fast, super quick thinker, I guess, and, super almost invulnerable. But that was it. She-Ra could reach out to you empathetically. She could communicate with animals. She could heal. Her sword turned into things that could help people. I don't know about you, but that just screams feminine power to me. To me, that just really, really spoke on the differences between masculine and feminine. That sometimes, us girls, we may not think it's a whole lot, this caretaking power, this inner need. It's not all women, I understand. But sometimes we can look at it the wrong way. Not necessarily as a weakness, but not as good as things that masculine men can do. And that's just not true at all. Think about who raised you. Raising kids, caring for people, whether they are biologically related to you or not, that is a power. You have a power over whoever it is that you're raising for the rest of their lives. You are the archetype for how, if you're a woman, how women behave. That imprints on children. You're the archetype for authority figures. This is something that will have lifelong lasting effects on these children. And I really feel like Mattel and Funimation dove into that, leaned into it, and made it a superpower. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And not only do I feel that is pretty damn insightful for a 1980s Saturday morning children's cartoon, but it does leave you with the impression that one isn't better than the other. Unless you're considering the theme music, then She-Ra wins. I mean, it's so much cooler than He-Man. I mean, that's pretty much it. Now, in the opening scene of Secret of the Sword, we learn two things. We learn that the sorceress of Grayskull has discovered a second sword. She has a vision, she has a dream about a second sword. And as she's having this vision, she kind of wakes up and it's made real, it's made corporeal. So she's discovered a second sword. Looks just like He-Man's Sword of Power, But this one has a shiny blue gem in the center. So pretty. So, first thing we learn, the sorceress has discovered a second sword. Second thing we learn is she sleeps in the throne room of Castle Grayskull. The throne room, okay? It's a castle. Don't they have more than one room? Is she renovating? Did she just move there? Why is she sleeping in the throne room? I have questions. I mean, can't King Randor or He-Man or even herself like magic a bedroom for her? Poor thing, she gotta be freezing. It's the living room of Castle Grayskull, basically. This poor woman, she can't, I mean, she really can't leave Castle Grayskull. She leaves Castle Grayskull, she can't use her magic, so she never leaves, like once or twice maybe. But if you are basically quarantined in a castle, why is she sleeping in the throne room? Why? It's hard not to judge, okay? It's hard not to judge. So after she has the vision of this sword, and it's, you know, become real, it's become corporeal, it's a physical sword now. This door, this cracks me up so much. This door that's never opened before in the Castle Grayskull throne room pops open, and there's this gold gleaming portal light. Like there's a portal. And I just have to know, did you never notice this before? There's this door that's, when you move into a place, you go through everywhere. You inspect everything. And you're telling me you never went up to this door and was like, it won't, where does it go? What is this? Is it a closet? Is it, He-Man, open this door. Oh, you never tried that. I would be creeped out. I would be mildly concerned that there is a room in my house that is locked and I have no idea what's in there. My imagination would go straight to like the skeleton key or something. There's some hoodoo room locked up in my castle, or there might be bodies in there. I don't know, but that's exactly where my brain would go. So you're telling me you're a magical sorceress and you're just like, huh, okay, and then never think about it again. So this mysterious door is now open in this castle, and there is this brilliant gold shiny portal light coming through, and she's like, oh shit, I better get He-Man over here. So FYI, He-Man's real name, his alter ego, his original ego is Prince Adam. So Prince Adam is He-Man, He-Man is Prince Adam. He has to hold the sword of power above his head and say, for the power of Grayskull, by the power of Grayskull, don't come for me. By the power of Grayskull, I have the power. And he becomes He-Man. That's how that happens. So if you didn't know that and you're watching this video, you gotta go watch some He-Man. Anywho, she telepathically reaches out to Prince Adam and says, hey, so I know you've got stuff because you're a prince. I mean, I don't know what your stuff is. You just kind of seem to wander around with your green tiger panther named Cringer, who's, you know, scared of water and everything, looking for trouble. But could you pop by my castle / bedroom? This door opened. Remember that door when I moved in and we couldn't get it open? Well, it's open. So Prince Adam shows up and she's like, so I had a dream about this sword and it's real. And he's like, oh, look at that. It's another sword. It looks like mine. It's crazy. And she says, Okay, so yeah, take the sword and go through that portal. Bye. She doesn't tell him where it goes. And as far as we don't know where it goes. She doesn't tell him who to take the sword to. As far as we don't know who it belongs to. Man, woman, animal, humanoid. We don't know. She just says, take this sword, go through that door, and give it to the owner. He says, okay. He just does it. What? This is not sending a very good message to children. Ask questions, okay? I'm not a ride or die. I'm not. I have questions, and they need answers. So Adam and Cringer, they go through the portal, and they run into this guy, Bo. He's a manly man. Just kidding. Bo always bothered me. I just couldn't get into Bo. So he runs into Bo and his faithful companion, Cowl, because he's a cowardly owl. They were so clever. So clever. And they bond over a bar fight. As Adam stops in this inn, in this village, and there's some Horde guard there. Now, the Horde are the evil oppressors led by this guy, Hordak. Yeah. Uh-huh. And they're just like being dicks. So Bo and He-Man team up, and they injure 3 of these force guards. The army of the Horde. They're called force guards. Bo takes him to the Whispering Wood, where he hangs out, and introduces them to the Resistance, consisting of some very, very pastel, colorful characters, including this thirsty bitch, Glimmer. When the Horde find out that they have injured some of their force guard, Hordak, he sends a platoon out to punish the village that the inn is located in. And it just so happens to include, Catra, for one, who is probably one of the most annoying characters in any cartoon. Wow, that's how she talks. All the time, every word out of her mouth. I mean, Catwoman had a cat-like look, but she didn't go all the time. Just way to kill the mood, Mattel. So he sends this platoon out to punish the village, and it's led by Force Captain Adora. But when He-Man goes mano-y-mano with Adora, he discovers that she's the one that the sword is supposed to belong to. Well, while he's standing there, what? They're able to take him off guard and capture him. So here's He-Man strapped to a torture bed in a dungeon, and he and Adora are, having a kiki. And he's like, I just cannot believe this shit. I can't. Because this sword is a force for good. And you are one evil bitch. So I just don't see how this sword could possibly belong to you. And she's like, I'm not evil. I'm not evil at all. I don't know what you're talking about. She's like, I'm not evil. The Horde's not evil. But then again, I don't really get out much. Because of my training, it kind of keeps me in the fright zone quite a bit. So honestly, I can't say one way or the other if the Horde is evil because I'm always home. Like, how is she the Force Guard captain, the leader of the Horde army, but she just never gets out? So He-Man's like, well, honey, if I were you, I would get out a little bit and go check out the neighborhood and see how your adopted daddy or whatever is treating the people. I'd see for yourself, because it's pretty bad out there. It's not good. After, she leaves the dungeon and she runs into her weirdo parents / bosses, Hordak and Shadow Weaver, his sorceress, who talks like this. So weird. They tell her, good job, you did great. Good job capturing those buttholes. You did such a good job. I'm so proud of you. Our little girl's all grown up. But she's like, cool. Yeah, thanks. I'm gonna go. I'll see you guys later. And Shadow Weaver is like, that was a little sus. She's acting a little suspicious. Meanwhile, the rebels land on Hordak's Beast Island to rescue He-Man, who's being interrogated as to why he's there on Etheria. Like, what you doing here for? So the rebels get there with the intention of rescuing him and immediately get captured. Like, all of them except Cowl. Like, immediately. So Cowl flies off with his big cowl ears. So Cowl releases He-Man, who then goes and rescues the people that were there to rescue him. I will have to say this, when it comes to, the cartoons of my childhood, the hero, the protagonist of the story, the heroes were the only heroes. Everyone else was just like, how'd you tie your shoes today? Oh, good for you. Gold star. Gold star. So he rescues the resistance, the rebels, Bo and Glimmer's thirsty ass. They call her Glimmer because of the drool, because she's so thirsty. Every time she sees He-Man, she's like, lady, it's a children's cartoon. So right as Shadow Weaver and Hordak are discussing, why is He-Man so powerful? Adora comes in holding the sword. She starts schooling Shadow Weaver and Hordak about how they're treating the Etherians. She's like, you are making these people suffer horribly. I thought we were the good guys. What the crap? What are we doing? We're the bad guys. Do you know that? We're the bad guys. So Shadow Weaver suddenly realizes that, we discover as an audience that Shadow Weaver's had her under this control spell, and that the sword she's holding is somehow counteracting these control spells that she's had her under. So she starts trying to reinforce the control spell, but instead settles for just knocking her the F out. So she knocks her out, takes the sword from her. So Prince Adam, back in the Whispering Wood with the rebels, the rebel scum, the resistance, he tells him, hey man, we need to head for the Fright Zone. Like, we need to go there. And the rebels are like, you crazy, man. You are crazy. Crazy. I mean, why would we just do that? We just left there. And around the same time, Hordak has created this device, the Magna transport beam, and he makes this plan to transport the Whispering Wood, because he's discovered where the resistance are hiding, and he's decided we're just going to get rid of them. We're just going to use the Magna beam, and we're going to transport them to the Valley of the Lost. Like, bye-bye, not a problem. Like the whole Whispering Wood with the rebels inside. We're just going to, off you go. One and done. And then after he tells us exactly what he's going to do, he also shows us exactly how to destroy it. So this Magna transport beam is powered by willpower, like the Green Lantern's ring. But it's a cabinet. So he takes Eternians and he puts them in this cabinet, and it sucks out their willpower and it charges the transport beam. And he shows us all you gotta do is destroy this willpower sucking cabinet like so, and it doesn't work. For real. So simple. So simple. I mean, I'm sure that won't come up later. I don't know why I said Eternians. It's Etherians. They're not they're just so similar. Eternia, Etheria. Why did you do this to us? Of course we get tongue-tied. It sucks the willpower out of the Etherians, and it charges the Magna transport beam. That's what it does. So they're back on Beast Island, and He-Man has disguised himself as one of the Force guards and sneaks in. He finds Force Captain Adora, and he's like, so, hey, what's up? How was your trip out to Etheria? You know, how'd it go? And she's like, arrest him! So she arrests He-Man, calling him a liar. You know, everything's fine. You're a liar, He-Man. And they put him in the willpower sucking cabinet, and it almost like immediately charges the Magna beam because he has so much willpower because of He-Man. So Shadow Weaver is holding both of these swords, you know, sword of power, sword of protection, and she comes to the realization that these swords are not from their world. No. Not only are they not from their world, but they are super OP, like super, super overpowered. And she's like, yep, this is definitely what has been interfering with my mind control spell on Adora. So they then leave He-Man alone. Like total Bond villain mistake. They leave He-Man alone in the convoluted way to kill him. Also with the sword of protection and power about 5 feet away from him. Like, bye, got stuff to do. Well, the sorceress of Grayskull, who's still in Eternia, who sent Adam there to do a job, okay? Because she couldn't do it. She's like, okay, you need to go through this portal and take the sword to whoever it belongs to. I don't know where it's going or who it's going to. Just take it. So she reaches out to Adora in her sleep, and Adora wakes after being reached out to by the sorceress. She's like, I gotta get to the bottom of this. What is going on? So she goes to where the swords are being kept. She goes to where the swords are being kept, you know, where He-Man is. And he's like super weak now because they're sucking all the willpower out of him. And the sorceress calls her again, this time from the Sword of Protection, from the gym. She like FaceTimes her. She's like, hey girl, what's up? How's it going? Now, here's my question. If the sorceress of Grayskull could reach out to Adora telepathically, I mean, this just raises so many questions. This feels like a pretty big plot hole, but whatever. Let's just lead into it. So she FaceTimes her through the sword. She's like, hey girl, hey, I need you to go save He-Man. I need you to go help him. He's a protector of the innocent, like you're supposed to be. Oh, and by the way, BT dubs, he's your twin brother. So clearly and emphatically, this blows Adora's mind. So for the first time, Adora holds her sword aloft, and she says, for the honor of Grayskull, which I love. I absolutely love. For the honor of Grayskull, I am She-Ra. And she becomes She-Ra for the first time. And it's so cool. And you hear the music. She-Ra, She-Ra, She-Ra. It's so cool. It's so much better than He-Man's. She then releases He-Man, gives him the Sword of Power, and he is fully restored. So Hordak happens to show up with a guard, and he's like, stop him! He orders the guard to take out He-Man and She-Ra. So She-Ra's like, hey, brother, you've got this, right? And He-Man's like, yeah. And he goes after the guard, distracts him or takes him out or fights him, while She-Ra goes to her horse Spirit, who has now transformed into a multi-pastel colored winged unicorn named Swiftwind, and he can talk. That was my impression of Swiftwind. It wasn't very good, I promise. So She-Ra takes off to go warn the Resistance that Hordak has made this magna beam or magna transport beam, and that they're gonna transport them to the Valley of the Lost. Well, after He-Man takes care of, that guard, he super jumps up through the ceiling upstairs to try and stop Hordak from activating the beam. Well, he's not doing a very good job because Hordak starts to activate it. But right as he's doing that, here comes our girl She-Ra with a giant freaking boulder, like a boulder the size of a mountain. And she throws it right in the way of the beam, which stops the beam from hitting the Whispering Wood and transporting them to the Valley of the Lost, giving He-Man time to completely obliterate the machine altogether, like with his stabs. So She-Ra swoops down on Swiftwind and picks up He-Man, and as they're, flying away back to the Whispering Wood, she's like, oh yeah, by the way, I'm She-Ra and I'm your twin sister. And he's like, what? It's a lot of those moments. He's not very bright. They decide they should FaceTime the sorceress and get the whole story. Like, how is this possible? How do I have a twin sister? I have no recollection of ever having a twin sister. No one's mentioned it. There's no pictures, no photo albums, no random bedroom. If there was, it would be pretty funny. Like, that's why that door was locked. We don't want you to know, buddy. So they FaceTime the sorceress, and they're like, hey man, what's up with this? Is she really my twin sister? And the sorceress proceeds to tell them that many years ago, King Randor and Queen Marlena, Prince Adam's parents, did not have just one child, but two. They had a set of twins, a boy and a girl, Adam and Adora. The Horde had come to Eternia from another dimension, and were attacking, but they really weren't any match for King Randor's army and the magic of Castle Grayskull. So everyone knew that these bebes had very special destinies. They were going to grow up to do something really special, and they weren't quite sure what that was going to be. They just knew that they were really special, and Hordak knew that too. So he concocts a plan, and he and his star pupil, who just so happens to be one Skeletor, and they sneak into King Randor's castle, into the nursery. And just as Hordak is grabbing baby Adora, Man-at-Arms busts in, and he's like, "Hey, what are you doing over there? Hey, hey!" And you know, Hordak didn't quite have enough time to grab baby Prince Adam, so he just kind of jumps out the window with baby Adora. He grabs what he can and leaves Skeletor there. And Man-at-Arms is able to capture Skeletor, who immediately spills all of the beans. Like, he tells him everything right away. He tells him about the plan. He tells him where to find Hordak. Like, how Skeletor is like He-Man's ultimate big bad. I just like him because of the way he talks. What? So Skeletor, you know, he rats out Hordak and tells Man-at-Arms exactly where to find him. So Man-at-Arms, along with the sorceress, on the, you know, one of the very few times she ventures out of Castle Grayskull, they find Hordak and Adora, you know, exactly where Skeletor said they'd be, but they're too late. Like, right as they get there, he jumps through a portal with the baby, never to be seen again. And they searched for years. They searched for years and they could never find her. So because of how traumatic this was, they decided, or the sorceress decides, that it would be best to just erase everyone's memories of baby Adora. That is, everyone except her, Man-at-Arms, and the king and queen. This is one thing I really don't get, because Adam was a newborn baby when his sister was kidnapped. He had no memory of her. Why bother erasing his memory? I can understand the servants and all that stuff, so they don't tell baby Adam that, "Oh yeah, we've been looking for your sister for years. Don't know where she is." I understand that. What I don't understand is they've erased everyone but the people that it would actually hurt remembering this terrible trauma. You know, the parents. We can't find the kid, so we'll just erase everyone's memory except for the people it's going to hurt the worst. Makes no sense. Anyway, what's done is done. They erased everyone's memories but the king, the queen, Man-at-Arms, and the sorceress. So no one would be all, "Where's Adora?" It's a solution. She tells her that with the sword, she's now She-Ra. She-Ra. And that with her sword, she can travel back home, her true home, Eternia, to see her parents. And Adam is like, "That would be awesome. Our parents would be so happy to see you. I mean, now that I know that they've been missing a daughter all these freaking years and no one's mentioned it to me, that's not weird at all. You should totally come home and see mom and dad, but it is your choice. It's 100% your choice." You know, so take some time, think about it, you know. So Adam takes Adora to the Whispering Wood to you know, introduce her to the people she's been terrorizing their entire lives and say, hey, so this is my twin sister. Yeah, she's like, she was the leader of Hordak's army, but it's fine. She was under an evil spell and she's not anymore, so everything's okay now. And everyone totally accepts that immediately without question. And they're like, here, lead our resistance. Well, at this point, Glimmer's thirsty ass speaks up. And she's like, so I haven't mentioned this before, but my mom is Queen Angela, and she's the true ruler of Bright Moon. And she's been held a captive slave by Harpa the Harpy for the last years, and we need to go save her. Can we do that while you're still here? Adam and Adora turn back into He-Man and She-Ra, and he immediately is like, let's cross swords. Yeah. He said that. And they immediately save the day again, because apparently these poor resistance bastards can't do shit for themselves. God love them. Someone's gotta. They get Queen Angela and take her back to the Whispering Wood to Glimmer. And it turns out she's magic too. Everyone's magic. Except Bo. Like the one man. That's a good guy. She-Ra decides that, you know, with Queen Angela freed and with the resistance, now's a good time for her to take a little vacay to see the rents. So she feels like it's safe to do that now. So using the sword, they take off for the portal to go back to Eternia. Well, some forest guards saw this and they run tell that to Hordak. Almost said Hodak. They run tell that to Hordak, and he's like, oh, hell no. And he chases after him and is able to just slide through the portal right as it's closing. As soon as Adora and Adam get there, the sorceress teleports them to Randor's castle, and Hordak like comes flying through in rocket form and crash lands. So he's like Megatron. He can transform. It was popular back then, okay? We don't need explanation, so don't question it. Just watch and enjoy. So outside their parents' castle, Adam surprises his parents with Adora, like, look, remember that sister I'm not supposed to remember having? I found her. And everyone's like, oh my God, they're all so happy. And start planning this big O welcome home Adora party. Meanwhile, Hordak has made his way to his old place, now under new management, Snake Mountain, and finds Skeletor, and they immediately fight. Because Skeletor's like, you threw me under the bus, dude. You just left me there. You left me there and took off. Like, not cool. Not cool. And Hordak's like, well, you ratted me out. You told him where I was. Butthole. And they, you know, fight. Well, Skeletor lands some pretty good blows. And Hordak's like, you know what? You've gotten better, boo. You've gotten tougher. Good for you. I'm so proud. They decide to team up to snatch Adora just so they can get rid of you. Well, Hordak and Skeletor sneak into the castle using shape-shifting magic. And then Hordak totally jumps out of a cake. It surprises everybody. And he snatches Adora and takes off. They're like, oh my God, this is not happening again. She's been here 5 minutes. We are terrible parents. But as he do, Skeletor just totally double crosses Hordak, pushes him through the portal, keeps Adora for himself. He's like, meh. But being the well-trained force captain that she be, while she's being held in a cell, Beastman comes in and she just like slides between his legs and escapes her cell, grabs her sword, turns into She-Ra, and kicks their asses. Adora later tells the king and queen that she feels it is her responsibility to go back to her adoptive home of Etheria and help those people. She wants to eliminate the Horde once and for all and free everyone in Bright Moon. And the sorceress is like, that's cool, sweetie. You go do what you're meant to do. And don't forget, you can use your sword to call an Uber home anytime. Adam decides, you know what? I'm going to go help my sister. I'm going to go help her get this resistance off the ground. And then I'm going to come back home. But I feel like it's the right thing to do. So he goes with her back to Etheria. They turn into He-Man and She-Ra, and all these animals start coming out of the woods, and people are like, oh, they start freaking out. And She-Ra's like, I'm sorry, what? Oh, that's cool. Oh, good for you. Oh, they're here to help. So it turns out she can talk to animals, and everyone's like, okay, Dr. Dolittle. And together with the animals and the Etherians and He-Man and She-Ra, they go straight to Castle Brightmoon, kick some Horde ass, and take back Brightmoon once and for all. However, her flamboyant and noble steed, Swiftwind, was seriously injured in the fight. And as she's laying down with, comforting him, we discover, oh my gosh, she can heal. She totally heals Swiftwind. With the Horde finally kicked out of Castle Brightmoon, Queen Angela on her rightful throne, the Resistance has established a real foothold for the first time in forever, since their battle against the Horde has begun. Before He-Man, says his goodbyes to his sister, because he's done what he's set out to do, came to help her establish this resistance. He hugs her, and for the first time, he calls her the Princess of Power. I mean, that's a kick-ass nickname, because there's a lot of girls out there, like I said, they can do both, that want to be princesses, but also want to be Xena at the same time. Nothing wrong with it. Sounds like a lot of fun. Please call me Princess of Power. It will make me very happy. Thank you. 2012, DC took its turn at the She-Ra story. They fleshed it out, gave her more character development, giving her more layers, more depth. But they also made it more violent and tragic at the same time, which, that can, to some people, become more relatable. They make her character arc more understandable. Rather than just being under Shadow Weaver's mind control spell, Despara, as she was now known by the Horde in the comics, is a brutal force captain who is fully aware of how evil the Horde is and how they are making the Etherians suffer. She served them willingly. She is even the one who led the Horde to Eternia to invade. She drove He-Man, King Randor, and the other Masters of the Universe into hiding even. But it was her connection that she discovers with Teela is what started her transformation, her pulling away from the Horde and transforming into She-Ra. I love this origin story. As far as origin stories go, it, in my opinion, is one of the best ones out there, because it really teaches us, children, adults, what have you, that you don't have to be defined by your past, that anyone can be redeemed and get a second chance. That's important. That we can use those experiences, tragedies, mistakes from our past to relate to other people and help them get through whatever they're getting through as well. We can help them make better choices and improve and grow just by empathizing. It teaches us that men and women, masculine, feminine, each have their own powers. And one is neither good or better or worse than the other. They're equally important, separately powerful, but when you combine those things together, they become unstoppable. It taught girls like myself that we could totally kick ass, but still be feminine and warm at the same time. Much like Wonder Woman before her, she didn't have to sacrifice an ounce of her femininity for strength and power, and that is so vitally important to teach young women. Now, there's a new She-Ra series on Netflix right now, and I'm going to be honest with you, I am unable to get through it. I just don't care for it. And maybe it's the purist in me that is struggling so much with the new format, but I really don't care for the direction they've gone with it. Now, I do realize that they have some hurdles that media-wise, He-Man and She-Ra are two separate entities these days. When it comes to toy production, they can show up in each other's toy lines, but any kind of visual media, movies, TV shows, etc., they're not able to cross over at all, which is extremely problematic to me because She-Ra comes from He-Man. That's her twin brother. They are intrinsically linked. You can't have one without the other, and there's just so much more to it. Like the power of the universe was in the swords, and then they put it in an orb, and the swords are able to access the power of the universe from the orb through the swords. It's this whole big deal, and it's really a huge bummer that they can't come to some kind of agreement, because it's really going to hurt both storylines at this point. I mean, again, I'm a purist, and I just can't get on board with how weak it feels to me. The new storyline, it feels weak to me. I just can't do it. And there you have it. Them's the facts on She-Ra, Princess of Power. If you like what you saw today, for the honor of Grayskull, smash that like button, lasso that subscribe button, and blast that notification bell so you can get more content from yours truly every single week. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an amazingly nerdy day, and I'll see you nerdlings in the next one. Bye.